Hi, my name is Vivek Tiwari, and last month I had the great honor of visiting the San Jose Museum of Art here in California. I genuinely feel that art is the only thing that humans have personified as to what it means to be human, an expression of creativity that we certainly were evolved to cultivate. The notion of presentation, ingenuity, revolution and rebellion, self expression, whether it's social, economical, or political, are all exemplified through art. I like what the actor said in this movie.
आर्टिस्ट किसी भी पॉलिटिकल आइडियोलॉजी में विश्वास रखे या किसी भी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का मेंबर बन जाए, ये उसका निजी फैसला है, उसका व्यक्तिगत चुनाव। मैं इसे उसके आर्ट के रेलेवेंट होने की आवश्यक शर्त नहीं मानता। लेकिन एक बात स्पष्ट है, श्रेष्ठ कला और साहित्य 20वीं शताब्दी में तो खासकर किसी न किसी किस्म के प्रोटेस्ट के जज्बे से पैदा हुआ है। ये प्रोटेस्ट केवल राजनीतिक था, सामाजिक या आध्यात्मिक था, इसका विश्लेषण करना आसान नहीं है, लेकिन कलाकार के मन में प्रोटेस्ट का, विद्रोह का जज्बा बहुत शक्तिशाली था। कोई भी पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम हो, अन्याय और दमन के विरुद्ध आवाज उठाना कलाकार की अहम जिम्मेदारी है।
Now, for your today's entertainment, I've put together some interesting pieces, or rather carefully crafted collection of art pieces that I rather found interesting or amusing. Now, there was too many artworks that I found interesting, and possibly I cannot share all of that in this video. So I've put together a carefully crafted collection that was rather entertaining, amusing, and interesting to me. Right. Now, let me tell you and give you a little bit of context about what my expectations were going to that museum versus what I actually found. I went with the expectations that I would see really exquisite paintings and techniques and forms. While there were certain exquisite masterpieces, the museum itself is, I would say, is a amalgamation of artworks that focuses on not just one medium as how we see in paintings, but different media. For example, how we hear things, how we feel things, how we perceive things, how we, let's say, how the texture feels, and so on and so forth. Now, one of the things that I want to highlight here is that I was not expecting so much of education on different printing techniques that exist on, let's say, printing photographs or even creating different art pieces. So it was a very, let's say, satisfying experience indeed. What I definitely want to point out, the entire museum is also not just a collection or amalgamation of artworks, but it also is centered around political, social, and economical messaging. So there is that component to it. I definitely recommend going there. It was much more entertaining than what I was assuming it to be. Now, let's dive in. For today's enjoyment, I put together some art pieces for amusement and something rather you would find interesting as well, or rather educational. I hope so. So the first piece I'm going to talk about is an Adobe artwork. It's basically a mud canvas on which an artist had painted a fine portrait of him and his grandmother. And to, if you look closely, it's not just done through, let's say, brush strokes. Although there are some brush strokes, but the artist has also utilized some very unusual tools as well when doing this Adobe art. Particularly, I can see some sponges and some other, let's say, tools that are not so convenient or not so common when you think about painting something. Now, when I say it's Adobe art and a mud-like canvas, of course, when it dries up, it becomes brittle, and that actually happened here, where when they hung it with on the wall, after some time, because of the canvas drying up, a piece of the canvas actually fell down. And they left it there as is. They didn't want to meddle with the art whatsoever, not even a tiny bit. So they've left it as is. But I just stood there admiring not just the portrait of the artist and his grandmother, but it was something very interesting experience for me to see Adobe art still there. Although in India, you might see some things like that happening during different festivals. It was sort of unusual, or the first time experience for me watching something like this in America. The second artwork I'm going to share with you is a cyanotype printing. it's the faces of the moon captured on different pieces of paper. Okay, so let me give you a little bit background about cyanotype printing. Certain iron compounds are actually spread over like a solution, or you can say in powder form, like a sort of a base on pieces of paper. While they certainly don't have any color when they are spread over the paper, they react to UV light. And what happens is on these pieces of paper, a stencil is kept, and wherever the stencil is not covering and UV light actually falls on that paper, it gives the paper a cyan color to it. Okay, and that's how this phases of the moon, or rather different parts of the moon, were captured when a stencil was placed on different pieces of paper, and UV light was a sort of um, bombarded on them, let's say. And that's how you get this fine piece. It's a very interesting artwork, I would say, because you don't generally expect something like this. And let me tell you one more thing about this. The pieces of paper are really random, taken out of textbooks, some different books from different authors. So it was not just blank paper on which it was taken. And it was pretty cool for me. Just like if you can find the compound, you can just tear off your textbook and put the pages of it and create new artwork just by UV light, and moonlight was basically used for it. Yeah. Okay, so, and I know moonlight is not moonlight, it's just sunlight reflecting from the moon, but bear with me when I say moonlight. Uh, the third artwork I'm going to show is another printing technique, rather. It's now the chlorophyll printing technique, okay, in which basically a leaf here is taken, and on that leaf, a stencil again covers the leaf in different forms, and when the natural process of photosynthesis happens, ghost-like structures appear on the leaf. Now, in this case, there's a veteran who was visiting Vietnam, and he found there certain people who kind of look like his family members. And because he looked like his family members and he had fought in the war, he was pushed by that, or moved by that feeling, and he wanted to capture those people because they look like his family members on this very interesting artwork, where he actually created a stencil, as you can see. And due to the process of photosynthesis, this artwork was created. I loved it. I loved the expression of creativity. He's a very renowned artist, so he could have done, let's say, a painting, but he chose to do something unique there. So I really love that. The next artwork I'm going to talk about is rather amusing one, because to me it just pointed out the plight of the Indian husband, never knowing what will happen the next moment, or what will their lover or their partner or their wife would do the next moment. I just found it amusing in that context, so I just wanted to share with you guys some light joke here and there, right? But the next one is rather a very moving, a touching piece, I would say. This performance is called Kuvucha tradition performance by Hmong women that express the let's say the tensions, or the conversations of the tensions between cultural heritage and personal intimacy. Their struggles, the shared story of struggles, resilience, and intimacy that exist among women, that always is present but is never heard really. Because as women play different roles in society, and in family, in different forms, whether they are sister, daughter, someone's wife, someone's girlfriend, someone's mother, they have so many different roles that they fulfill, and there are certain stories to tell that that are never heard, particularly what's happening with their bodies as they age, or what's happening with their freedoms as they grow up, right? So it's a story or a conversation among women, talking about their shared story. And I'm going to put this piece to here for you to listen to. But if you want to really understand what they're singing, or what their conversation is all about, I put here a piece describing a little bit more on the screen about their performance, and there's a QR code to it. If you scan the QR code, you can actually go through the entire, let's say, storyline or the conversation that they'll be covering in this performance. So it's a very interesting piece. I stood there listening to to it a long time, but I'm only sharing here like 17 seconds of that clip. So do enjoy and do explore that. It's a very moving story. Moving on, the another piece that I have that I want to share with you is a very interesting artwork, and let me tell you a little bit more about it, okay? Because it kind of looks like abstract because you see a human-like character which has octopus-like structures at the bottom, right? Now, to me, from far away, it just felt like an abstract art, but when I got closer, I realized it's a paper on paper kind of artwork, which means every single crevice you see, every single block you see, it's not something that was created on Microsoft Paint. Essentially, each of these pieces is a separate piece of paper that is kind of attached to another piece of paper that serves as the background. So it kind of gives it gives it a texture that is sort of not visible from far away. When you go closer, you kind of start getting fascinated about how the heck someone thought about this. And more importantly, they cut it such a way that the lines are clearly visible. Like if you can zoom in, there's certain white and black lines that are so clearly visible because the paint was made, okay, the painting was done, and then there was some black outlining done, and then it was cut. So when it was cut and put on another paper, you see all these blocks, okay? So it was not exactly, the lines were not painted, okay? Because if you look at the body, it should look like one seamless piece without the lines if it's coming from the same painting, right? But no. So the lines were actually drawn first and then they were cut. So you see the separation. So the lines were not drawn after the pieces of paper were like stuck together. So just to tell you. So this gives a very interesting structure, a little bit more of a 3D texture as well. And I found it very sort of interesting. So those were like few pieces of art I wanted to share with you for your enjoyment. Hope you liked it. I did explore a lot of other artworks as well. I'm not sure sharing here. Perhaps maybe in some other video I might talk a little bit more about it. But I definitely recommend visiting there if you have not, or if you ever visit California, do check out that place. It's a real jewel sitting in San Jose. See you.